Am I the butthole for canceling Thanksgiving after my family made fun of my wife? Okay, so I am 28. Really need some feedback here because I'm genuinely confused about whether I'm the asshole in this situation. This happened just a few days ago, and it's still a sore spot. I've been married to my wife, Clara, F26, for about 3 years now, and we've had our share of ups and downs, like any couple. She's great, and we've always worked together to make sure our relationship stays strong. We're very different in many ways, but we complement each other well. Clara's more introverted, whereas I'm the extrovert who loves spending time with my family. And because of this, I always try to make sure Clara feels included when it comes to family events, even if she's not always comfortable in large groups. Thanksgiving is a big deal in my family. We're a close-knit bunch, but that also means we're used to joking around with each other a lot, sometimes a little too much. In the past, Clara has told me that my family's sense of humor isn't exactly her style, but she's always been a good sport about it. She doesn't want to rock the boat, and she always tells me she's fine, but I know sometimes it makes her feel uncomfortable. This year, we decided to host Thanksgiving at my parents' house, like we always do. I assured Clara that this time, it would be different. I would step in if anyone went too far, and I'd make sure nobody crossed any lines. Clara was nervous about the whole thing, but agreed to come with me. She even made a delicious homemade pumpkin pie for the occasion. Everything seemed fine at first. We arrived at my parents' house, and as usual, the place was buzzing with activity. Everyone was running around preparing food, chatting, and catching up. My siblings, Ethan, M30, and Hannah, F24, were already there, and everything seemed normal. Clara looked a little tense, but she smiled and was polite, greeting everyone. I could tell she was trying to push through the nerves. The first few hours went pretty smoothly. We had dinner, talked, and joked. But the moment everything went south was when Uncle Gary, who's known for his humor, opened his mouth. Let me just say, Gary's jokes have never been the most sensitive. He's the kind of guy who thinks it's funny to make fun of people's careers, hobbies, and even their looks. He's always been a bit much, but we usually laugh it off and move on. Clara, however, doesn't take jokes about her work well at all. So, we were sitting at the dinner table, and Gary made a comment about Clara's job. Clara works as a graphic designer, and Uncle Gary, who works in construction, started going off about how pointless her job was. He said, "So, let me get this straight. You get paid to make things pretty for a living? What exactly do you do all day?" He chuckled as though it was the funniest thing in the world. Everyone at the table laughed, but Clara froze. I could see it in her eyes. She was uncomfortable and upset, but she didn't say anything. I tried to ignore it at first, thinking maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. But then, Ethan jumped in. My younger brother, Ethan, added, "Yeah, I don't get it either. How can you call that a career? I guess it's better than sitting around doing nothing, though." More laughter. Clara didn't respond, but I could see her trying to hold back tears. That was the moment I snapped. I've always stood up for Clara, and this time was no different. I shot up from my seat and slammed my hand on the table. "Okay, that's enough," I said, and the room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me, and I could feel the tension in the air. I turned to Clara, grabbed her hand, and said, "Let's go. Now." She looked at me, clearly surprised by the sudden outburst. My mom immediately stood up, trying to calm me down. "Calm down, it's just a joke, honey," she said. But I was done. I couldn't just sit there and let Clara be humiliated. I pulled Clara towards the door, ignoring my mom's attempts to stop us. As we walked out of the house, I heard my dad call after me, but I didn't stop. We went straight to the car, and I could feel the weight of the situation on my shoulders. Clara was upset, and I could see that she was holding back tears. "I'm so sorry," I said to her. "I didn't mean for this to happen, but I just couldn't let them treat you like that." Clara wiped her eyes and said, "I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't know how to respond to them, but it just hurt so much." I hugged her tightly, feeling guilty but also proud that I'd stood up for her. We ended up spending the rest of Thanksgiving night at home, just the two of us. We ordered takeout, watched a couple of movies, and tried to salvage the evening. Clara told me she appreciated me standing up for her, but I could tell she was feeling down about how everything unfolded. It wasn't what either of us had expected for a holiday that was supposed to be about family and gratitude. The next day, my phone started blowing up. My mom called me first, asking why I left early. I explained that it was because of the comments about Clara, but she didn't really get it. She said, "Come on, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." She couldn't understand why I was so upset. And then, the texts started coming in. Hannah, my sister, messaged me saying that I'd ruined Thanksgiving by leaving and that I was being dramatic. She told me I needed to calm down and stop being so overprotective of Clara. That hurt, especially coming from her. My dad also sent a message asking what happened and why I couldn't just let it go. He said I shouldn't have caused a scene, and I needed to be more understanding of how Gary is just like that. That annoyed me even more. I don't care if Gary is always like that. It's still not an excuse for being hurtful. Then Ethan got involved. He sent me a message that simply said, You're embarrassing the family. You left over a stupid joke? That one stung a lot because Ethan and I have always been close. We've been through a lot together, and I thought he'd understand. But it seemed like he was just as upset as everyone else about the disruption. I tried calling him, but he didn't pick up. So, I left a message explaining how much the comments had hurt Clara and how it was really tough for me to just ignore it. That's when Uncle Gary called. He sounded so casual and didn't seem to get why I was still upset. Come on, man. It was just a joke. Clara has to have a thicker skin. If she can't handle a little teasing, maybe she shouldn't be in the family, he said. That's when I lost it. I told him that it wasn't about teasing, it was about respect. I told him I wasn't going to tolerate anyone disrespecting my wife. We went back and forth, and it ended with me telling him that I wasn't going to be part of any family gathering where Clara felt uncomfortable or unappreciated. After all this, Clara and I had a long conversation. She said she was grateful I stood up for her, but I could see how much the whole situation had hurt her. She didn't want to be the cause of family tension, but I could tell she was really shaken by how things played out. She didn't want to have to be the sensitive one at family events, but I could see how deeply she felt the sting of the comments. We talked about what to do next. I suggested we go back to the family and try to smooth things over, but Clara wasn't sure she could handle being around them after how they treated her. She didn't want to be the source of more conflict, but I knew she wasn't fully okay with how everything went down. I told her that it was more important to me that she felt comfortable and respected, so I wasn't going to force her into that situation if she didn't want to go back. That night, I sent a text to my family, explaining that I wasn't going to participate in any more gatherings unless everyone could show Clara the same respect they'd show anyone else. I made it clear that the jokes, while seemingly harmless to them, were deeply hurtful to her. I also told them that if they didn't want to acknowledge the problem, we'd be stepping away from family events for a while. I expected some pushback, but I was willing to stand my ground. The response was predictable. My mom and dad both texted back, saying I was overreacting. Ethan said I should stop trying to be the hero and let Clara grow a thicker skin. Hannah told me I was ruining the family dynamic and that I needed to stop babying Clara. Gary, of course, was the one who refused to apologize. He didn't see what the big deal was and claimed that I was just too sensitive. I started to wonder if I was being the asshole here. Was I overreacting? Was I being too protective? I just couldn't sit by and watch my wife get hurt, but maybe I went about it the wrong way. Clara told me she didn't want to be the cause of more tension, but she was also grateful I stood up for her. Still, I feel conflicted. So, am I the butthole for canceling Thanksgiving and stepping away from my family after they made fun of my wife?